welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to do another paper pad use up video, which is where I'm using an entire paper pad up in a series of videos. And I did one a few weeks back using up loads of kind of smaller scraps like strips and tiny pieces. And then in this video I'm going to tackle some of these larger pieces. So I've got quite a lot of these kind of bits and bobs of scraps left, but they're bigger scraps, so they'll do for kind of mats and in some cases even card fronts. So I'm going to create some layouts using those, and then for my focal points I'm going to use these gorgeous vintage Chronicles collage page books. So I've got this Botanica volume 1, and I saw someone that I follow on Instagram, her Instagram handles @CreateArts. I'll pop it in the description below in case you want to go follow her. And she has used loads of these images on cards, and she gives it a much more kind of mixed media vibe. I fell in love with the images, and I thought it'd be really nice to use them as focal points on these cards. So I'll just kind of flick through a few pages. You can see I've cut some of them up ready for this video. So I'll just flick through a few of the pages so that you can kind of get an idea as to what they're like. There's some really gorgeous images, and there's absolutely tons of them as well. You can see it's quite a thick book with kind of, I would say, magazine type weight paper. It's intended for collages. So I've got that one, and I've also got this Butterflies volume 1. And as you would expect, it's full of tons of butterflies. So we'll be using bits from both of those books as focal points. And we'll be creating 10 cards today. So I really hope that you enjoy creating them with me. So let's get on and make some cards. Okay, so all 10 of today's cards are going to be really simple because we're just trying to use up those bigger scraps. And this card is perfect for using up those papers that you really love, but it's maybe not a paper that's going to be the feature of a card. So this one I really like. I like the colours and I like the foil on it, but it's not kind of like a feature statement piece. So all I'm going to do is cover the entire card blank with it, and then I'm going to add on this pale coloured flower so it doesn't detract so much from that background and it still really lets it shine. And I'm also going to be using up some scraps of foam sheets in this as well. So I'll pop a bit of foam behind there, and then I'll just pop a couple of pads behind these two pieces here. And then I'm just going to glue onto here, and that will help add a bit of dimension as well, because the stem's glued down and the other pieces popped up will just add a little something. Now I'll just trim the excess off the bottom there. So then I've just got some blue cardstock. I don't want a big sentiment for this, so I'm just going to use this Thank You So Much from this Everyday Sentiment set. And then I'm just going to heat emboss that in gold onto the blue cardstock. So then we've got this sweet small sentiment. And I'm just going to pop some foam behind there. And then I'm going to pop it in here. And then that's that first card done. So then for this next card, we've got this paper which is really pale, which might be quite nice for some cards, but I wanted a pop of colour for this card. So I've got a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card blank in this bright kind of purpley pink, and then I've cut this down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and then the pink goes really nicely with this flower, so then I can pop this up over the top. So I'm going to glue this down, and then I'm going to pop the floral up on foam again. And then I'll pop some foam pads behind these pieces too. So I'm going to add that onto there. And then I want a small sentiment again, so I'm going to use that same thank you sentiment. And again, I'm going to heat emboss it in gold. Then that's that card done. So then for this card, I'm going to use an A6 card, UK A6. So that's 4 1/8 by 5 7/8 inches. And I've cut this to be ½ an inch smaller. And I want to use this butterfly, but obviously that leaves quite a bit of space. So I'm going to use a bigger sentiment on this card. So I'm going to use this Happy Birthday from this Catherine Paula Designs set called Best Birthday Yet. And quite often that is how I choose my sentiments. I have a look at what space there is on the card and look which sentiments would look good there, rather than choosing my sentiment first. Unless obviously there's something specific that I want to say. But generally I make birthday cards and thank you cards. And I'm always on the lookout for sentiment sets like this where it's all birthday sentiments. Because the mixed sets are nice, but I tend to, like I say, mostly do birthdays and thank you, so I like to have a lot of those on hand. So then I'm going to cut around this. So then I'm going to just glue this down. And then I'm going to pop the sentiment up on some foam pads. And don't waste these outside bits of your foam pads if you have the ones that have those extra bits, because you can always use them for popping things up. So I'm going to pop that on there. And then I only want to stick the body down on the butterfly. And I'll stick the antennae too, so that they don't come off. And then the wings can come up and give a bit of dimension. So then there's that one. So then this one uses some smaller scraps, because these weren't big enough to create a mat, so I'm just putting these across. This one is 2.5 by 5.5 inches, and then this one is 1 3/4 by 5.5 inches. And I've chosen two quite innocuous patterns so that I don't have to worry about them clashing. And then I've got this gorgeous floral, which I thought would be nice going down that seam to kind of hide the seam between the two papers. And this one's quite delicate, so I'm just going to glue this one on. Now I'll just trim off the edges. And I'm going to use that thank you so much on the pinky cardstock again. And then I'm just going to add this on. I think I'll just glue it and make it a 1-layer card so it's easy to post. And I think that these flowers and butterflies just make it so easy to kind of create these cards to use up your scraps. And they're quite cost effective as well, because you get so many in the book. I think it'd be really nice to use up some of your paper scraps and maybe create a set of cards to gift to a friend or a neighbour or a family member that maybe can't get out as well these days. I think that's really pretty. So then for this next card, you'll see that I've got this lovely paper, but it's got this piece out of it. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do about that. So I've got a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card blank that I'm going to glue this onto. And I'm going to position it like this. So I've obviously cut it to 4 1/4 inches wide. And then I've chosen this absolutely huge flower, and I'm going to position it to cover that cut out piece there. And that way, no one will ever know that that bit was out of there. So again, I'm going to glue it down. And I think that actually on this one, I'll probably add glue to here. And then I can turn it and I can cut off the excess. And that's a really nice way to use up some of those big flowers that don't fully fit on a card as well. And then I'm just going to use this happy birthday again on the navy for this one. Then I'm going to cut this out. So then I'll pop that up on some foam pads. And then there's that one done. So then let's make a square card. So I've got this one, which is a 5-inch square card base. So then I've got a 4.5-inch square of this paper. You can see I had quite a bit of this paper left because it's good for kind of like backgrounds and just adding a subtle interest to the background, but not so much if you want kind of focal point on your card. But it does really nicely for this kind of card. So I've got this huge butterfly, and again I'm going to leave it to go over the side. I'm going to use this thank you so much again, but on the navy this time. So I'm going to add a bit of foam behind this, and I'm going to put it in this corner, and then I'm going to pop the butterfly on at a bit of an angle, and I'm going to just glue it by its body again, and then I'm just going to chop off the excess. And I think I'm going to leave those top bits to hang over. It will mean I'll need a 6x6 envelope, but I like the way that they come over the top. So then for this card I'm going to layer some patterns. So I've got this pattern, and I've cut that to 4.25 by 5.5 inches to cover my card blank. But then you can see that if I put this floral straight onto there, it kind of gets a bit lost. So what I'm doing is I've got a 3 by 4.25 inch piece of this paper, and I'm backing that on a piece of the navy that's 1/4 inch bigger. And then I'm actually just going to pop some foam behind that. And then I'm going to add the floral over the top. And then I'm going to heat emboss that thank you so much again on the navy. So then I'm just going to add some foam strips behind the sentiment. And then I can add it onto my card. And I think that looks really pretty. And it's a good way of using up that very busy paper in the background as well. So next I'm going to use this paper to almost cover a 5-inch square card blank, and this is where I'm kind of altering things a bit to fit my scraps, because I was originally going to have it covering the card front, but this piece was very slightly too small, so I just decided to stick with this piece just to use it up. So then this on there doesn't show up so well, so it's a nice soft card if you prefer it like that. If you want to give a bit more impact, I've got this 4 by 4 inch piece of navy cardstock, and that really brings the flower off the page. So then I'm going to glue that onto here. I'm going to add foam pads behind the flower, and then I've just got this thank you so much. And then I'm going to add my thank you so much up here. That's that one done. So then for this one, I've got this piece that's left out of a piece of paper that had big flower borders on it. So I'm using a UK A6 card blank again. So I've just cut it down to the right width for my card, and it only came this far down. So I'm going to glue that on. And then I've got some of this lace paper tape. This is from diamond press. If you don't have something similar, you could always use like some actual lace or some ribbon or something like that. Anything that's going to give you a nice patterned edge, even a lace die maybe. So I'm going to glue this thin strip of navy cardstock just to cross that join. And then I'm going to add some foam behind my sentiment. And then I'm also just going to add a butterfly from the butterfly book and just pop that so that we get a bit of dimension. And then there's that one done. Then for my final card, I've got another A6 with this piece of pattern paper that's 1/4 of an inch smaller, and I'm just going to put this 3.5 inch circle onto it, but I'm going to hang it off the side a little bit. And then I'm going to cut off that excess. And then I'm going to glue this onto my card. And then I've got 2 of these butterflies that I want to add on. And I also need some room for my sentiment. So I think I'll add my sentiment on there. And again, I'm just going to put some foam behind it. And then I'm just going to add the butterflies on by their bodies again. And then that's that one done too. So let me lay them all out for you. I'm not going to get them all on the screen, so I have to put them on one by one so you can see them, but I can still fit them on. So I really hope that you've enjoyed today's cards and that it's given you some ideas for how to use up your larger scraps and create some beautiful cards. I'd love to know which is your favourite. Please do let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.